Good day to you out there, and welcome to a very interesting edition of Business and Economy, where we broaden your knowledge on critical economic policies and implementation. I am Ile Emeje, your host. One of the parameters for determining the performance of the economy of any country, including Nigeria, across the world is unemployment rate. In Nigeria, the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, revealed that the nation's unemployment rate among the youth stood at 33% as of the last count. This is frightening in an economy that is bewildered with social unrest. In all climes, university education is structured such that the curriculum of training the youth is made to fit into national growth and development. However, where the knowledge acquired is not gainfully deployed, the chances are that it could be manipulated. Meanwhile, some experts say government is yet to fully maximize its role of sufficiently providing the enabling environment or infrastructure that can boost the economy and facilitate the private sector to thrive. Today on the program, development analyst Mr. Abraham Olakpade is joining us after the business news to examine the topic, certification and joblessness, the paradox. We'll be back in a moment.
The communique issued to newsmen by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, OAGF, showed that the total distributable revenue of 907.054 billion naira comprised of statutory revenue of 301.5 billion naira, value-added tax VAT of 273.2 billion naira, electronic money transfer levy of 11.4 billion naira, exchange gain of 320.8 billion naira, total deductions for cost of collection of 73.2 billion naira, while the total deductions for savings, transfers and refunds was 979 billion naira. It also indicated that the gross statutory revenue of 1.152 trillion naira received for the month of June 2023 was higher than the 701.787 billion naira obtained in May 2023 by 451.134 billion naira. From the total distributable revenue of 901.7 billion naira, the federal government received 345.564 billion naira, the states received 295.948 billion naira, the local government councils received 218.064 billion naira, while 47.478 billion naira was disbursed to the relevant states as 13% derivation revenue. The report also noted that as of June 2023, the excess crude account ECA stood at $473,754.57. The communique further disclosed that in the month under review, companies' income tax recorded tremendous increase, import and excise duties, value-added tax and oil and gas royalties increased significantly, while petroleum profit tax and electronic money transfer levy decreased considerably. The Federation Account Allocation Committee (FAC) for the month of June 2023 was headed by the Accountant General of the Federation, Dr. Oluwatoyin Maiden. Ile Emeje, ASO Television News.
Our guest, a development analyst, Mr. Abraham Olakpade, is here to discuss the topic, certification and joblessness, the paradox. Mr. Olakpade, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, ma.
All right, somebody may be tempted to ask what a paradox is according to our topic. So what is a paradox?
A paradox is just an opposite of what should be. That's just it. That's just the simple definition for a layman.
Okay.
An opposite of what should be.
Okay. Going into business now. The unemployment rate in Nigeria is said to be 33% according to the NBS as at the last count. What would you explain is responsible for this high rate of unemployment in Nigeria?
You know, just like you said in your introduction, there are three parameters that in my own study, believe is you can use to measure as a yardstick for whether an economy is developing or retrogressing, which number one of it is unemployment, like you said. The other one is poverty level. And the third one is inequality, the robustness of the middle class. Because when people are educated, they should naturally fall within the middle class because of opportunity that the education should give to them. So now, even that 33%, I believe that is not the right figure. Because
that is lower?
Yeah, it's higher.
Higher?
Yes, I believe so. Because when you want to take any statistics, with my own basic knowledge, is that you look around yourself to determine the right one. In the last 10 years, how many people do you know that has graduated from university or any of our tertiary that is gainfully employed? How many in the last 10 years? Because this was what I was discussing with people, and I discuss every time. Look around yourself. In the last 10 years, how many people do you know that has graduated from the tertiary institution and is gainfully employed? So if you are true to that question and you look around yourself, you will know that that figure is more than that. That is also the reality. But now, going to your question about what is responsible for it. When a man gets to a destination, he doesn't get there in a day. Is as a result of traveling from a point to another, before eventually got to where he is. So we can't be talking about this problem. It's not one factor, and it's not a single answer. We need to just go back in our own political economy of this country and look at what has been happening, and where did we get it wrong, and how did we get to this point. Now, if we start from 1960, where we got, when the colonial master left and we became an independent nation in 1960, what was the economy like at that time? The economy was robust. It was regional government. Every region was competing among themselves to be the best, and there were a lot of opportunities. So the opportunities was more than even the university graduate and tertiary graduate that was there as at then. That's why you even hear from elderly people that before they left even secondary school, now, what we call secondary school now, there was opportunity waiting for them. Those that were fortunate to go to higher institution then, they will tell you that since they were in maybe their 300 level or 400 level, companies will come to their schools to examine them. So the best among them will go to the private sector. The second to the best among them will go to the government institutions. So the opportunity was there because the economy was performing well. So now, after that, we became republic in 1963. Everything was still looking good. In the mid-60s, we have the crisis started with the Action Group crisis in the Midwest Nigeria then. That was where crisis started happening. A lot of political violence started. In 1966, January 1966, we had the first coup. Military took over. So that was where the problem started. Most of the military boys that took over in 1966, then they were young men. They were not ready. They didn't have the right knowledge about the economy. So that was when we started having the problem. In 1960, by that July, another counter coup happened. No, in that 66 January, we had a unitary government. There was a proclamation from the military head of state then. We jettisoned the regional government. Everything was centralized. We had the unitary government. By the July of that year, we had a counter coup. So that one led us to the Civil War. So a lot of resources and lives was wasted during the Civil War. The economy was contracting. That's what I'm trying to say. The economy was not expanding. There was no investment into the economy. And we derailed from the plan that we were following of industrialization. We started having a lot of resources were going to different places. When we eventually came out of the Civil War in 1970, the new military head of state was a young man. There were a lot of mismanagement, alleged mismanagement of the economy. A lot of things were going wrong. There was no vision. People were trained in art of war. They were the ones saddled the responsibility of the economy. So there was not much investment into the economy. The economy was contracting. After that, after that military era of that time, we entered into the Second Republic. The Second Republic was marred with a lot of mismanagement of the economy. Everything was not going right. So by the second term of the First Republic, that was 1964. That was 1984 rather. So by that time, we alleged that it was the foreigners, especially the Ghanaians. We alleged that they were the ones taking our jobs. So what I'm trying to trace now is that the problem has started. But it was starting, no problem starts big in a day. Okay. That's why I'm just tracing the political economy for all of us to know that this problem is not a day problem. So by that time now, so do we add no investment in our economy? We allege, you have to blame when you are frustrated, you don't know what your problem is, you blame anything you can blame. We blame the foreigners among us, that it was the foreigners that were taking our jobs, so that was why we didn't have job for our youth to do. So one day we just came up, the then president came up and said the foreigners must leave. That was what led to Ghana must go of 1984.
Okay.
So almost 2 million Ghanaians had to leave within 2 weeks. After they left, our problem did not go away. Because the problem was that we don't understand the economy well. The policies we're implementing were faulty, and there was a lot of mismanagement of the economy. The population was growing. And as the population was growing, the economy was not growing. There was no industrialization. Industries were closing down. There was more pressure on the government to open more institutions because many people saw higher education as a ticket out of poverty. So many people were clamoring for more education, for more higher education, that if my child can go to university or any tertiary education, I'm out of poverty. So government had to yield to the demand of higher education, was opening more institutions, but there was no place for them to go because the economy was not expanding. There was no industrialization. There were the few industries we had were closing down. General policy, many general policies did not favor many foreign firms. Many of them left. So we found ourselves eventually, after the Second Republic was truncated also, we found ourselves in austerity measure. Don't forget, we had austerity measure. We have a structural adjustment program. Structural program was very simple. This was the simple definition of structural adjustment program. Deregulation. Government has no business with business. Mass entrenchment. Government should not employ people. They should only create an enabling environment for people to thrive. And also, the quality of our tertiary education was also diminishing. Don't forget, we had the first struggle, 1978, Ali Must Go struggle, which was as a result of higher costs of higher education. From that point also, the fund that was going to our tertiary education also was going down. And as the fund was going down, the quality of our graduate was also reducing. So for the first time in the early 80s, we started having our graduate has no job to do, so they started going abroad to go and seek greener pasture. It was not so from that 1960 to that point. Then when our people go abroad, they go to acquire knowledge and they come back here. Job was already waiting for them there. Even most of the companies here, they also have recruitment agents abroad. So they recruit them, they send them back here. But by that 1980, because the economy was poor and nothing was working, our people started for the first time going abroad to go and seek greener pasture. So we structural adjustment up to military era. We came back to the Fourth Republic in 1999, this Fourth Republic in 1999. So we continued with our structural adjustment program. We had to continue with our deregulation. We removed subsidy on diesel. We continued with privatization, sold many government companies. There were no replacement. Companies were being shut down, but new ones were not coming up. We were implementing policies, but we were only looking at one side of the argument.
Okay.
We were not looking at the other side. That, okay, if we implement this policy now, what will happen to the victims? What will happen to the sectors that will be affected? The first deregulation in the Fourth Republic, the first one, which was the removal of subsidy from diesel, affected many textile companies. Many textile companies could not cope when diesel price has gone through the roof. So they had to shut down because they cannot compete with imported goods. So now, as we implemented that policy that time, we did not look at it that what is going to happen, how do we protect this economy? Why? We're just listening to one side of argument that when government just provide the enabling environment, the companies themselves will spring up. There will be industrialization. So when we saw that it was not coming forth, we adopted a policy at that time during the former president Olusegun Obasanjo's tenure that self-employment is now the new thing. Don't forget, it was during that time SME started becoming a popular slang. The government was talking about SMEs, we're talking about self-employment, we're talking about all those things. But it was lip service because many other things that need to be put into consideration was not put into consideration. But that time we had a saving grace. It was during the banks when the former CBN governor, when it was trying to consolidate banks. So banks were expanding, and then whatever you study in the institution, banks are going to give you a job.
Okay.
Whether Yoruba or anything, that was the early 2000s. And also the telecommunication also was there. So, but when we left that time, we came into 2011 when we had high GDP growth at 6%, 7%. So we thought the economy was developing, but there's a difference between growth and development. We can be having GDP growth, but the people that are in the economy are not feeling it. So that was what was happening then. So the unemployment, the economy was not expanding in reality. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So, and the population was increasing. The rate of the higher institutions were turning out graduates, and there were no opportunities for them. So that is on and on. That is how we've gotten to this point. It's simple. The reason why we are here where we are is that the economy has not been expanding. So there are no opportunities in the economy. So people who naturally live should not look for jobs. Before the medical doctors don't look for job before. I'm a young man, but I know that even when I was in institution, if as a medical doctor, for your housemanship, you don't need to struggle for housemanship. It was automatic. Now, medical doctors are looking for jobs. Even housemanship, especially in the South. Many have to leave the South to come to the North to get their housemanship done. So now, even professional, before we say if you have professional certifications or international, you don't need to look for a job. No, it's not happening anymore. Now, it's happening because there is no opportunity. Economy is not expanding. So for even people who have international certifications to be looking for job, for first-class graduates to be looking for job, so you will know how pathetic the situation is. Because even when I was teaching in institution, if you have a first class, automatically your institution should give you a job. If you have a first class. But that is no longer happening. So those are the indices that you know that the economy is not expanding. So there are no opportunities. So the opportunities that are very few. And the people that are competing for these opportunities are more than the opportunities that are there. So that is how we get to this point that we are. We are not expanding. The government has taken the back seat, thinking that they should just put everything, they should just play the role of an onlooker, just tie the road, do this and do that, and everything will take shape. No, that is why we are here we are. Because the government has left the work that they should do. They've left their own responsibility because they thought that the things will naturally take shape by itself. But nothing's happened on their own until we try to make it work. The only thing we'll be having from the government is maybe interventions. I won't say it's not a real economic unemployment plan. It's interventions. Just like we have in some states, maybe a state governor will just come in, he will just organize one empowerment or just say 10,000 graduates, you will employ 10,000 graduates. It's not real employment. Maybe they will just be paying them stipends of 10,000, 20,000, and we employ 20,000, and after that, they have to go away. After his own tenure. We also saw that with this new educational policy of the last administration where they employ teachers, some for 2 years, some for a year, and after that, they have to go back to the employment pool because the government has failed in their responsibility to know that unemployment, creating jobs for your youth, is a mandate of the government. It's not the mandate of the private sector. Okay. If private sector are struggling, if I have a company today and I'm struggling and the government is not helping me, so where will I put the people? I'm not making, even the private sector are struggling. So if they are not making profit, how will you tell them to employ people? If their business are not expanding, how will you tell them that they should employ people? I can give a count of the number of companies that have left since that 2000 up to now. And even some that are still saying they will leave. They will leave. We see here companies saying they will leave. So so where do the graduates go?
But again, we thank you for the explanation. But again, some international experts have argued that most of our graduates, Nigerian graduates, are not employable. And again, if we need to consider the curriculum of the Nigerian education system, is it right to allege that knowledge acquired in our institutions is insufficient to support the industrial sector, vis-a-vis the argument by these international experts that most of our graduates are not employable?
We don't even need any international expert.
Okay.
We need ourselves to talk to ourselves, and we need to examine ourselves. Just like when you asked me about how did we get to where we are, I told you there are a lot of factors, and one of the factors I mentioned was that the quality of our tertiary institution was declining because government funding to it was declining. Strikes, everything was declining. A university lecturer told me that when they got the employment in the early 70s, early 60s, as a university lecturer, you don't need to worry about anything from the day you get your appointment letter. Your own is to sit in the office, do research, and do research. You don't even think about you want to build a house. Yes, you don't have to worry about you want to build a house because there is a government, there is a comfortable quarters you have. Your salary is coming. Your sabbatical leave is coming. So there is no need for you. So you're 100%, your mind is 100% on your job. So the man told me, he said, but now, if you don't want to suffer, you need to think about many things.
Think out of the box.
You need to think about how to sustain yourself. You need to think about your retirement. You need to think about, because a government, he told me, he mentioned the military government that came then, that the military government shot the INSHO, chased all of them out of the quarters. So many of them had nowhere to go because of the strike. He shot the university, he shot the gate of the quarters. No, they had nowhere to go. He said since that time, they started thinking. Their mind was not their job anymore. They started thinking about how are they going to make ends meet. What will happen to them after their retirement. So since all these things that are happening, it will automatically affect our quality of graduates. The truth is that government funding to our university is declining. And it's not sufficient. Where government is bowing to political rebel to open more tertiary institutions, yet the funding to it is dropping. So now, let me give you an example. I went to one of the best government universities in this country, and I did my IT also in one of the best. So I can say I know a little bit about ISL quality. Let me tell you, there were times where there was no ionized water, there was no Bunsen burner. There were times where there was no Bunsen burner. There was time where they could not give you the right water that you need to do your experiment, where you need to go and buy table water or you need to go and buy a pure water for you to conduct experiment. There were times where the reagent they gave to you has expired. There were times where they will tell you that you need to use your brain and you are going to the practical lab. So most of the time when you go into the lab, you need to go and read and study what is in the textbook. You are not relying on what's going on in the lab. You are relying on what you read. So all these things are happening. And when you complain to your HOD will tell you there is no fund. The HOD will tell you, when he complains to his dean, the dean will say there is no money. When the dean goes to the VC, the VC will say we don't have money. So who will bear this? It's the quality of graduates will definitely be affected. I was reading a report from an expert in US, and he was addressing, I think was invited to a convocation ceremony to address the graduates. And he told them, let me tell you something. Before you got your degree has expired.
Wow.
He told them. He said, because the world is this information age, and information is doubling at every 5 years. And I'm sure it's more than that now. So what is in vogue yesterday is no longer in vogue today. If that could happen in an advanced country, so what's happening here? Let me make a joke. I was writing a course in 300 level, and my lecturer gave our class rep a note to photocopy for us. And when he gave him that note to photocopy for us, and some parts were not clear, and we went to our lecturer. He was an associate prof that time. And when we told him that this part was not clear, he said he can't remember because this note was given to him by his lecturer. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. A lecturer that is already was already an associate prof that time.
Yeah.
He gave us undergraduate a note that was given to him when he was an undergraduate. And I was wondering, is this man trying to tell me that nothing has changed since then? Between almost 30 years. So what will you think will happen to graduates that go through that system, that come out of that system? Because I'm a realist, I like to bring things to reality so that we'll see it. So now when we went to the lecturer, and I was very familiar with him, I was laughing about, and he was laughing. And he was telling me about how he doesn't have time to sit down to write notes. Because
what was he doing?
He has to lecture in more than one university. He has to lecture in 2-3 universities at a time because he has to make it at ends meet. He has to make ends meet. So he was going from one university to another. So he has no time. So he will just come, give you a note to the class rep, photocopy anything, and lay hands to the class rep and set your exam questions. So what do you think is going to come out of graduates that come out of that system? So and even the private university is not so much different. What most the parents are paying for is ambience. That's the truth. When I interact very well because of what I do, I interact very well with school leavers, graduates. And when you interact even from those coming from the private university, you will see that the funders are in business. They are just in business. That's just the truth. They are just in need for the business, and they are just in need to create ambience, the right ambience, and that's what the parents pay for. So definitely the quality of our graduates is not sufficient to meet up with the knowledge need of our economy. The truth is that there is a large lacuna between our quality of graduate and our economy, which should not be. And not tertiary education, I think we've lost the meaning of tertiary education in this country.
How?
Let me explain. There is a distance between the economy and tertiary institution. Tertiary is just existing for people to just come out with, I'm a university graduate.
Certification.
Just certification, that's the right word. Let me tell you, as a university lecturer, you have 3 mandates. You have to teach, you have to research, and community development, which your research should translate to your community, your host community. What it means that if we have a university here, the whole of, let's say, Maitama, the whole of this environment of Abuja should feel it.
That we have a university.
That we have a university here. Why? When the lecturers come out with their research, their first place to experiment it should be the environment. I was reading a book, Bankers to the Poor. Bankers to the Poor by Mohammed Yunus, the man that started this microfinance bank. He was educated abroad. He came back to Bangladesh. And he looked at, every time he was driving to university, he's going to see too much poverty. People were dying of hunger and everything. And he was an economist. He had a PhD in economics at that time. So he will look at it, drive to his institution. So he look at it one day. Why will people be dying of hunger? People are dying of hunger, and we were in the tertiary institution here, we are professors, we are PhD holders, and we say, well, so what is the value of our education if we cannot? And he started experimenting with his host community. He started experimenting. He took his own first money, $20. He started with microfinancing, give it to these women. He experimented with farming, called these women, called the planters, give them money. He experimented. That seed was what that germinated and became Microfinance Bank. It solved a lot of problem of poverty in Bangladesh. I'm just giving an example of what should happen. So now, what will happen is a lacuna, and I'm not placing the blame on the lecturers. I've told you what led to it because I spoke to them. Because of what I do, I'm baffled. I speak to many of them that your knowledge is not translating to your environment. How can we have an institution and even your host community is not feeling it? I was talking to someone and he said, he mentioned the country and he told me, when I was living in this country, I was close to their institution. He said, we don't pay for internet. The university, we use the internet from the university. Like as we have the University of Abuja there, these Gwagwaladas axis, all these axes there should be their invest laboratory where they experiment. When you drive around there, you should know that there's an institution there. But one of the reasons why you know that there's a lacuna is this. We have an institution, we have building department, we have architectural department, we have all this, and yet we are giving our buildings to engineers outside.
Are we supposed to build them?
Why can't we build them for ourselves? We are the one that are training these engineers. We are the supposed one that train these engineers. We have the manpower there. What only we should look for is the labors from our side. But the knowledge of it, the building, the supervision, the execution of it, why can't you build our buildings with direct labors in our institutions? Why can't we? Because when I was in an institution, these are the questions I do ask every time. Because this is a question that has been bothering me for a long time. How can we say we are in a citadel of learning? We are the one training people from outside. And we have problem, we need to take it to people outside. And we have departments here with us. They can do that.
Maybe we are not qualified yet.
We don't have. Our knowledge is not translated to reality. That's where I'm going. There is a big gap between the knowledge in institution and the knowledge that's acquired in institution and the need of the economy. So now, that is why now, if I hire a staff now, a young graduate, I have to spend a lot of money to train the staff. Because he does not have the right knowledge that I need, that my organization need. It is a two different world between what is happening in the classroom of the institution and what is a reality. Don't be surprised you see a professor of mechanical engineering is calling roadside mechanic to fix his cars. Understand? So I remember in the institution, we have elect students, graduates, postgraduates in our hostels, and we have electrical problems, and we need to call roadside electricians. We need to call roadside electricians. So which means that the knowledge that we have is not relevant to what is obtainable outside. That is just the reality of what is happening. And if anybody, some people might have a contrary argument, but from my own perspective and from what I've seen, my own opinion is that our university is so distant from what is happening. I was reading something and said, a nation is celebrating that now they can produce bread. That they can produce bread, they can produce sachet water. You know, these are ridiculous things. These are ridiculous things. And this is what is happening. When you go to send technology transfer of many institutions, what do you see there? What do you see there? I remember when one day my uncle was telling me, he said, why he is surprised that this keke napep, he said he's surprised that this keke napep cannot be produced in Nigerian institutions. One day my uncle told me, and this is not an educated person, but he has traveled. He said he's surprised that this is a very, very simple technology. Don't be surprised. One of my friends, I have a friend, he's a computer engineer. He told me 5 years in institution, he didn't enter into computer lab more than 3 times. So now, how do you expect this one, that kind of graduate, how do you expect him to be able to perform when he gets outside? How do you expect him?
All right. Looking at all of this explanation, I want to bring it out that it has been assumed that government is the major promoter of business, including the business of education and that of Nigeria. How do you think we have been able to achieve all this? You have explained some, but again, what do you think the government should do, especially in terms of monitoring and evaluation to ensure that our graduates, the people that we are graduating in year out, should be able to meet up with our industrial requirements? Let
me just tell you the truth. We don't have government who really understand the problem yet.
You think so?
I know so.
Over the years?
Over the years. Because we rely, most government rely on international consultants. And I used to tell, there is no international consultant that can understand the problem like those in the system.
Okay.
And before many are so insulated, many in power are so insulated from the problem that they are elected to solve. And when you don't understand the problem, you can't conceptualize the problem rightly, definitely your effort will be lost. It's just like now, if I'm traveling to a country I don't know, and I get to a T-junction, and when I'm supposed to take the right, I took the left. Speed is not an advantage if you are traveling in the wrong direction. That is the truth of the matter. Where I'm supposed to take right, I took left. No matter how far I'm traveling, no matter my speed, I'm traveling in the wrong direction.
Okay.
If government has been doing the right thing, we wouldn't be here. That's the truth. We will not be here. And somebody said it's only a fool that does the same thing all over again and expect a different result. The government approach to let me just create an enable environment and let everything flourish by itself is not working, and it cannot work. Government need to come back to the round table and look at it right from inception. This graduate, what is the quality of the Nigerian graduate? I expect that when we have Minister of Finance, which is the coordinating minister for the economy, the Minister of Education, the NUC chairman or the secretary, NUC secretary, the VCs, they should have a meeting point where they meet and say, what does our economy require? What is the manpower need of our economy?
Okay.
Every economy has a manpower need. Over the years, you will see that I was talking about absence of planning. Now, there is no plan. In a developing economy like ours, government policy should direct at least 70% of our students from secondary school should go to the sciences. There should be a way government can, there's a policy government can do to do that. It's not a draconian policy. There's a way government can use a policy to push 70% of our students from the secondary education, they go to sciences because we need industrialization. And industrialization starts from sciences in the secondary school. So, but there is no absence of that. We need just 30% for management studies. So if government can start on that footnote, let us first go back to from the secondary school, even from the primary school level. Let's start planning our economy. All we see in the secondary school curriculum is for you to gain admission to tertiary institution. That is what is geared towards. It's not geared towards you gaining some basic knowledge in secondary school that even if you decide not to proceed to ensure, at least you can do something for the economy. It's not. All our secondary school is about going to institution. What if I choose not to go to institution? What I choose not to go to university? In the Musena line, it's not everyone that goes to tertiary institution. But by the time you are leaving secondary school, at least knowledge has been imparted that at least you can do one or two things if you decide to. Now, going to our institution, if through the Ministry of Finance now, which is the of Economy, if they carry out a survey on our economy, what do we need? The manpower request. If they can determine that, they will have a data to send to our institution. They will have a data to send to Ministry of Education or whoever is in charge of the education and say, this is our manpower. So now the institution will be able to know what is required of them. But in a case that there is no connection, there's a disconnect. The education system, they are doing their own separately on their own. The economy is functioning in another direction. So one is dancing to the right, one is dancing to the left. There is no coordination. So we first need that coordination between the education and the economy. So when we get that first one right, now we have to advance that. Okay, now why is it that companies are closing here and they are moving to other side? They are moving to other climes? Why is it that they are moving to our neighboring countries? Why is it that we had social number of companies before? Why is that? So now what I'm trying to say, now economy, the coordinating minister of economy and the manufacturers, they need to sit down. We have the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria. We have many players in our industrial sector. The economy needs to now talk to them. What is your challenge? It's not that government will just sit down in their AC office and just be writing policies. No. You need to talk to the players that, okay, what is your challenge? Like now, last week, I was hearing a report that poultry farmers said they might shut it down because the cost of maize, the cost of corn is beyond their power. And don't forget that this sector, they just suffered an heavy loss during the chaotic Naira redesign policy. Because where they cannot stop their chicken from laying, but there was no demand for the eggs. So they had to sell below the cost price. They've not recovered from that. Now, another problem is there. Now, what is the government? What is it doing? So that's what I'm talking about. Now, if they eventually shut it down, look at the number of people they will chase out. So that is the disconnect I'm talking about. Also, we look at the automobile sector, look at different sector. All of them will tell you about their problem. But if you tell them, have you spoken to the government, they will tell you nobody's listening to them. So now, where is the government coming about their own policy? When the players in the sector, when they are not carried along.
Now that we have the graduates, those knowledgeable, in quotes, and jobless, they are idle, they are not doing anything. What do you think should be the resultant effect on our own economy, our local economy in Nigeria?
Is certification non-knowledgeable? Because knowledge must be relevant to have any effect. If they have the right knowledge, there will not be this problem we are talking about. What they have is certification. It's not the right knowledge. And that's having that level of education And because at least no matter, even if your knowledge is not relevant, it will, one thing education will do for you, even if you don't have the one that's relevant to your economy, is that it's going to help you think. It's going to expand your mind. That's one thing. Even if what you have cannot translate to what the economy needs.
Yeah.
But for you going through that system is going to instill some things in you. Ability to wake up, ability to wake up on time, ability to talk to people, coordinate yourself, make presentations, all those things, expand your mind. You memorize it, expand your mind. So now, that's we having those people with that kind of capacity.
Yeah.
And now, not be able to use it where they can earn legitimate income. That's a very, very dangerous thing for any nation. And it's like we are sitting on the gun of sitting on the keg of gunpowder. Look at what is happening today in the Northeast. And thank God that God has been helping us, and we are trying to push back on insurgency, on banditry, and all. You can see that these crimes are very coordinated crimes. They cannot be perpetrated by people who have no level of education. They are not crimes that can be perpetrated by people who have not been through higher education. The foot soldiers are the ones that we are seeing most of the time. The foot soldiers and the uneducated ones that we are saying that they are uneducated fools. Those are the foot soldiers. Those who are masterminding these attacks, those who are masterminding this planning, they are people who have very sophisticated level of education. Because how are they able to beat our security agents? How are they beating all our paraphernalia? Well, just last, I was watching the news yesterday, and I read that some of the kidnappers, they made a video, and they posted a video on the internet that if the parent of kidnapped students will not pay 15 million within a week, they are going to marry those female students out. Why is it that we cannot trace them? You should know that these are people who know so much about ICT. The NIN is there, the BVN is there, the tracking system is there. You must know that these are people who have some very level of education. Somebody said, if someone who have not been to school wants to steal, is going to steal small. But if somebody has been to university and want to steal, will steal a bank. Yes, because of sophisticated level of reasoning. So we having people who have who have obtained tertiary education without anywhere to use it to earn income is a very, very big risk for our national security. It's a very big risk for our national security.
So if you have the opportunity now to meet with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what measures would you suggest as a way out of all of these problems?
One of the things I would just first tell him is this: don't do interventions. Because interventions is just like you doing cosmetic when the face is bad. You know, and that's what we've been having over the years. That's why I'm going to tell him that one of his policy that he's talking about of 2 million graduates and giving them pap and corn and be giving them stipends, that is not the solution to our problem. Because now you do that, maybe you pay them stipends for 2 years or 1 year. After that, what happens to them again? They go back into employment pool. So we should not do that. What we need now is a real coordination. Number one, government must take it as a responsibility that unemployment is a problem of the economy. And government must go beyond creating a enable environment.
Okay.
Government must get involved. When many intelligence agencies are advising us that government has no business with business, it's not at this stage of our own economy. Even developed nations, their governments are taking charge of the economy of unemployment. Let me give you an example. Last week I was reading it that one of these electric motor vehicles manufacturers. So they were considering where to place their battery manufacturing company, and Spain, they were considering between Spain and UK. UK attracted them by giving them over £1 billion of subsidy. India is giving manufacturers of batteries subsidy in over $1 billion also. That's what nations are doing. Nations are calling entrepreneurs, industrialists. Come and settle down here. We are going to give you enabling not only environment, we will even give you tax breaks. We will make sure that anything, because our graduates must get a job. Don't forget that during the economic war, the trade war between China and US, the United States government took charge of the economy. They make sure that the companies the sectors that will be affected most by this trade war, they were given a lot of subsidies, especially the agriculture sector. The government needs to buy from them at the right price. The government needs to buy from them at the right price. Even if the government has to go and dispose it, the government needs to, so that that sector will not close down. Right. And also, we need to have what we like a tracker, an unemployment a tracking system. You will hear, if you are hearing campaign in developed countries, you will hear maybe a presidential aspirant saying that I'm going to create so million of jobs between social sector. And maybe when you are listening to the midterm review, you will hear that in automobile sector, we've created so number of jobs. Right. In agriculture sector, we've created so number of jobs. So we need that tracker too. Right. So that we know what we are doing, whether we are making a loss, whether we are getting result or we are not getting result.
Right. Time will not permit us to go on all of the other questions that we have. But you have said that the government needs to invite entrepreneurs to the country, and also we need a tracker on unemployment levels so that the economy can perform better than what it is. The guest we have been speaking with is a development analyst, Mr. Abraham Olakpade. Mr. Olakpade, I want to thank you so much for finding time to honor an invitation on this edition of the program.
It's a privilege.
All right, and to you, our audience, we appreciate you for taking time to be with us, hoping you have benefited from us. Stay with us for more of our programming in our channel.